Welcome to our latest conversation with friends. And today in the studio we have Jes Bland, who may be a familiar face both in Australia and New Zealand and has been doing a little bit of the speaker circuit in the last kind of year. Jes is an incredible Wahine and fundraiser, and I can't wait for you guys to hear more about Jes. Jes, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I really appreciate what you're doing at the Fundraising Nest. So,
Kira, thank you.
Say that.
So, first question is, I don't introduce people because it's about people telling people who they are. So, Jes, who is Jes Bland, and what's your fundraising career looked like and currently?
My fundraising career really is in the individual giving space. I did start out as a journalist, but I don't think any of us actually planned to go into fundraising. I always say that. I don't think I've spoken to anyone that has.
Yeah.
I have worked in amazing charities in New Zealand and Australia, so I'm quite privileged to kind of see the best of both worlds. I've worked the last 3 years at the Mulligan Institute of Medical Research, which has been an amazing journey, really building their individual giving strategy from scratch, starting from an FPOS machine on the desk to now we've just done one of our record-breaking appeals that hit 400,000, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And this week I've actually done a bit of a career change and I've moved over to Bigfoot fundraising, but I'm going to be staying on with the Mulligan part-time. So it's all a bit hectic for me at the moment, but really exciting. So
yeah, very interesting. I know the Bigfoot, good, great agency to be going with, but what a privilege to be able to live in both worlds. I mean, I think that can only benefit both.
Yeah, it's my kind of ideal outcome. I didn't plan it that way, but I'm actually pretty happy about it. It was Mulligan's has a big place in my heart. I put a lot of passion into that place for the last 3 years, so to be able to kind of stay on in part-time capacity means a lot to me, and really,
You absolutely have, and we were fortunate at the Nest Fest last year to have you speak in both Auckland and Wellington, and I know we caught up in Brisbane just last month, and you are sharing your knowledge, and that is what the Fundraising Nest is all about. And you really have done an incredible piece of work from Mulligan, and just the innovation behind it. You know, I actually pinched one of your slides. You know, I messaged you a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? I was like, Jes, can I use one of your slides in a presentation I was doing? Because your innovation and your thinking is quite unique in terms of the individual giving. So can I just, I guess maybe it was so hard to share that whole session in this conversation, but it's definitely, you look for opportunities to really instill basic relationship fundraising and make people feel loved and special, don't you?
I think that that's really key, and I think maybe my point of difference. I really think, and I think we're getting better at it, but I think as fundraisers, looking after our donors does need to be at the heart of everything and not just a churn and burn. So I try to kind of think about how supporters would want to feel and instill that in everything that I do in our campaign building. So, yeah.
And it absolutely comes through. So you've been in... I get asked this now that I've moved to Australia, and I find it quite hard to articulate sometimes. Is there a difference in fundraising between Australia and New Zealand?
Oh, that's a great question. If you'd asked me that a few years ago, my answer probably would have changed, but I do think New Zealand is probably a couple of years behind Australia. I think some of the things that we're doing don't work so well in Australia, probably because they've been kind of going on for a little bit long, but I do think that New Zealand is catching up to that quite quickly. I also think that New Zealanders are a different type of supporter, and you have to acknowledge that. And I find it quite often that quite a few New Zealanders will go work with Australian agencies, and I've been in the same boat. And I do think there's you do have to be wary that we are we're a different population. We do have some different values. Some things that are at our core are different to the Australian market. So even though they are quite similar, there's also really significant differences that I think are pretty important.
Yeah, I was asked that actually in an interview that just came out. yesterday, and my response, funnily enough, was about donors, and I said, donors, humans are the same all over the world. So I wasn't certain there was a difference in donors, but I do think New Zealand charities are much more sensitive to the potential risk of mass style marketing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think because we're a smaller population, particularly telemarketing is a big one here that I've really found. You'll find that you're calling the same people. And of course, that's going to happen in Australia, but with a smaller population in New Zealand, we have to be careful as a sector that we're not bombarding, which I think we definitely are at the moment. I don't have the answer for that, but I'll keep working on it.
Absolutely. So the fundraising nest it's the philosophy for behind, and the vision is it's putting the fundraisers at the heart of what we do. It's designed by fundraisers for fundraisers, and I believe that if we looked after fundraisers a bit sooner, the way we're taught to look after donors, we'd have a much happier, healthy, more fruitful sector. We know the churn is there. We know the burnout is real because we're so dedicated to what we do. And so inspiration and inspiring others and the peer-to-peer support for me has been the biggest learning. So is there any standouts for you in your fundraising career that have inspired the fundraiser you are today?
I'm a huge fan of Adrian Sargent. I hope I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah.
And also just the leaders that I've had in the past. I've taken a little bit from all of them. So I've worked with Martin at RSPCA and Corinne at the Women's and Children's, and recently Laura.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a good leader who's willing to share knowledge with you, and also let them share your knowledge with them, so it becomes this circle, I think is really powerful. And to be honest, the world inspires me to fundraise because I think we're working in a really challenging society at the moment. And if you can kind of take pieces of that and think, well, what can I do to make that a little bit better? That's inspiring in itself.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
can. That's what we're doing. We're making a difference. I think I think I feel quite privileged in a way, although it's stressful and burnout. Working in this sector, you also, if you were not to read the news, you actually see a lot of good in the world. You see a lot of things, good generosity, good things being done, and so it really does help you kind of have that balance of, yes, the world is a scary place, but actually our world is doing everything it can to make it better.
We just need to get louder than the media, and then
Yeah,
I think there are some really great things happening, and yeah, exactly. And I think when you work in this sector, you get to be surrounded by that more positive
yeah,
stuff that's going on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you think are the top 3 priorities for fundraisers working in the sector today?
Donor love.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think we need to get a lot better at our retention. I mean, the benchmarking figures all show us that acquisition isn't actually putting up our total donor numbers. It's the people giving to us. So looking after them and just focusing less on that sort of old school real churn and burn acquisition mentality. It's still important, but we really need to start putting, when we build our fundraising strategies, retention first,
yeah,
not as sort of an afterthought. Second, sharing knowledge, which is exactly what you've just spoken about. I think we are really good as a sector at sharing knowledge and not working kind of all protective. But there probably is still more that we could do in that space to not be so competitive with each other. Another one, and kind of echoing on from that point, I think it would be really cool if charities could start to work together a bit more when they share common causes.
yeah,
I think there's power in the collective, right? So
yeah.
I think about all the mental health charities and all the
The
environmental
advocacies, yeah,
charity. Yeah, and if we could just kind of join forces a bit more, we would have a louder voice. And then once again, wouldn't be sort of saturating the market and competing with each other so much. So I really hope that in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, we can start to see more of that happening.
yes, a bit more of a collaborative approach to the
Yeah.
actual the cause, that doesn't mean that you can't be innovative and, you know, provide your own context, but actually in the greater good, what can we do that's aligned while still
Exactly.
maintaining what it is we want to do for our particular group of people. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Collaboration is a word lots of people throw about, but actually actions speak louder than words, don't they? So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I still haven't quite. I've seen a little bit of it, but I just think, wow, what an amazing opportunity as a sector. If we could, you know, we have these huge conferences and we all get together and we share knowledge and inspire, but it would be great to actually start working
yeah,
together. Yeah.
brilliant. And so I know you are kind of, you're super duper with the digi, kind of, you're all over the digital stuff. It's super impressive. What kind of excites you, on the flip side, I guess, is that excites you about the future, but is there any kind of potential fear involved in that too?
Um, I think what excites me is probably quite similar to everyone else. I mean, we're moving into that AI space. I think being able to use automation without over automating is quite, when done smartly. I think what scares me is people overusing it and us all sounding the same.
Yes,
I think I've already seen quite a few emails where I'm like, that sounds very similar to this one, and you know,
yes,
this is just being spat out of AI, and
yeah,
how can we do this without it sort of killing our own unique voices?
yeah,
That concerns me a little bit, and job loss. And I think there's a risk with technology, and you talk about burnout, where just because we can do things more efficiently and faster doesn't mean we should be expected to do 10 times more at the same time. I think I think that's something to be cautious of.
yes. It should
Yeah,
make us more efficient in the processes that don't add value to the donor or the cause so that we can spend more time on the value for the donor and the cause.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So just making sure we're using it in the right places,
Yeah,
I think, is key. Yeah.
brilliant. And so, Jess, what do you love about being a fundraiser? What do you love about it?
I love that I'm doing something. I mean, we spend so much of our life working. So why not try to kind of combine that with doing good, making, you know, the world a better place? It's exciting as well. Um, I think when you're in fundraising, like we were talking about before, you hear about all the positives,
Yeah,
right? So that kind of uplifts you as a person. It is hard work, but
yeah,
I think when it's hard work that does good, it makes it feel a little bit better. So I think just being able to do good, being able to meet really inspiring people as
yeah,
well. I find that every fundraiser that I talk to, whether they're junior or senior, always have really good ethics at heart.
yeah,
You don't ever find someone in fundraising who doesn't belong in that do good
yes.
sector. So yeah.
Yeah, it takes a unique kind of breed to just keep going through challenges because it is, yeah, we do it because we love it, but it also means we're susceptible to being vulnerable, depending on
Yep.
the cause, but also that expectation. There's no time to stop and go, that was brilliant. You know, what fundraiser has ever been told, just raise the same amount next year, or actually, we don't need that much next year. It's always like, well done, now
Let's get
on to
more.
the next thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that statement more. It's something I've faced
Hmm.
um quite a lot, and I think we need to be better at not putting that pressure on ourselves as well, and
Yeah,
actually getting better at stopping and celebrating our achievements, and sharing those with our supporters as well.
yeah,
I find, you know, for New Zealand, it's just been New Zealand tax year,
yeah,
and we have so much, you know, it's tax time, give, give, give. Wouldn't it be nice to just spend a month after that just
yeah.
celebrating what we can then do with what we've just achieved? So, yeah,
Absolutely. I know. Can
everyone
you
slow
imagine?
down.
Yeah. Can you imagine if, you know, I know CEOs have a whole different worlds, but actually if they understand, you know, over my, sometimes, you know, especially if I was working remotely from a head office or whatever, and kind of absolutely smashed budgets and had the best things. And I often would think, God, wouldn't it be lovely to get like a little card in the post from PE saying thank you? You know, like just little things. Because I know a lot of times they'll be like, how do you recognize, if people just want more money, how do you give recognition? It's that actually recognition comes in so many different ways, like we do with our donors. That's all you want, a little bit of validation to feel that you're valuable, and it can make a world of difference.
It can, and I think that's why I talked about the previous leaders that
Yeah,
I've had, because they did exactly that, and I think that's what's kept me through some quite tough times in fundraising, is just even if it's just from,
encouragement. Yeah,
but I think from higher up for the fundraising sector as well is where it seems to fall over.
yeah,
Not picking on boards, but
yeah.
slightly, I think, acknowledge the role that fundraising plays in your organisation, because it's pretty
It's
important.
absolutely, and it's a huge mental shift that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And you can have the best leaders, the best fundraisers put together, and they'll be, oh, well, go talk to the board, and you'll tell the board everything, and they'll just nod at you, and then the answer is no. But then, oh, let's bring in a consultant who tells them exactly the same thing that you have
And then
told
they'll
them.
be,
So,
I have, faced that numerous times. It frustrates me greatly. I don't know. It's the same with my daughter, though. Sometimes when it, right? Sometimes when it comes from someone else, it's the same thing. So, yeah, one of the life challenges I haven't quite cracked yet, but I do.
yeah,
I think it's definitely something we also need to get better at. Is
it's that idea that fundraisers are not professional experts. They're not people who are trained. It's not a profession, so therefore they're yeah. It's
it's not that whole bucket. Oh, you just go and shake. You just go and yeah, sure. Yeah.
absolutely drives me nuts. So going backwards to Jess, when you were younger, what is your earliest memory of what you now know to be fundraising?
Oh, it would have to be the 40-hour famine,
Mm.
I think, and eating way too many barley sugars, because I think that was all you were allowed to eat from memory, and getting quite sick. To be
Yeah,
Yeah, and just going around the neighbourhood, right, back when that was okay. I don't think we see much of sending kids out to knock on
no, I
doors
mean that was
anymore.
my one, was Live Aid, and in the council estate we lived in, all the kids were going around all the flats, just knocking on doors, asking for money for the children that need food. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
Um, it's interesting when you become a fundraiser and you look back at those big campaigns, because as a kid you don't think about it, right? You're just
no,
like, oh, that's a fun thing to do. Let's all challenge ourselves and just eat lollies. Like, that sounds awesome.
yes,
But yeah, that would be one of my earliest memories of fundraising.
of
And then
fundraising, absolutely. And so now that you are working kind of both agency, so you'll be working in Australia and New Zealand at the same time?
yes, all remotely from New Zealand. Hoping to sort of pick up some more New Zealand Bigfoot clients. So
Yeah,
they've got me on boots on the ground now.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm quite excited to kind of. I've got a passion for so many different causes.
yeah,
So it's going to be, for me, working agency side is the ability to be able to actually work with multiple different charities, so I
yeah,
can kind of spread the good, right? Is the way I look at
absolutely.
it.
And,
Yeah,
and your focus will be on the kind of individual giving journey.
yeah. A lot of digital.
Yeah,
So Bigfoot's kind of bread and butter is the digital space, in digital strategy space, and really
yeah,
starting quite what I preached at the presentation about, let's not look at things campaign by campaign, but really start to build the blocks between our programs better. So always on fundraising, and just having a really strategic approach to
yeah,
digital, as opposed to just sort of not really knowing what you're doing, because
absolutely.
digital can be a really intimidating place.
Yeah,
There's new technology. I mean, there's new platforms coming out all the time. And so I think there you do really need to be strategic to make the most out of it. So yeah, really, really exciting. And I think there's definitely,
yeah.
um,
And so
yeah,
with your digital, does that include social media as well to an extent?
yeah, a lot of social media across multiple platforms, a lot of email journeys, stewardship journeys, appeals, and basically how do you join all of those things together. So as I spoke about in the presentation, let's when you do an appeal, how do you then take the success of that appeal and those learnings and apply it to the rest of your fundraising for the rest of the year? And I think that's the beauty of digital. We can learn as we go. Direct mail can be a bit harder and a bit more expensive to do that.
And do you think some of the mistakes, so if you've got your appeal and you know exactly, you know, what's going out, what the messaging is it just as critical that they have the donor journey mapped in before the appeal goes out?
Well, from my experience and the uplift that I've seen sort of working in Mulligan and previous charities, having your stewardship journeys connect with the messaging that you're asking money for is critical. And a lot of people, it doesn't actually go that way. I wish it did, but it seems really logical, but it doesn't. So I think if we can start to flip it, and as we're planning these appeals, we can start to talk about how do we take that across the rest of our fundraising, and how do we unite everything together, and how do we build it back into our stewardship journeys?
Yes, because that's I think your relationship fundraising it's everything I am. It's my being, and I think the fun part for me is being in it, like thinking about the connections with the donor and being innovative and imagine they got this and this. And for me, my brain works almost backwards. Like this is how we could make donors feel, and then fit I've not done directly. Not my space.
Yeah, I mean that shouldn't be backwards, right? That's the right way around. I would say. Yeah, I think one thing we did at the Mulligan is at Christmas time we got all the scientists to actually sit down at the table. I bribed them with chocolate and donuts and sugar rush everyone, and got them to handwrite these cards to as many supporters as we could. Obviously, you know, you can't kind of do that to everyone these days, but I think that that's what then helped our appeal be so successful this year. So it's, even though, yes, there's a lot we can thank in digital, I think making sure that you look at those other personal connections is still really important. Really, really.
1,000,000%. It's so true. Absolutely. So before we wrap up, Jess, where can we find you on the weekend? What does Jes Bland like doing when she's not a fundraiser?
I've got a bit of an interesting hobby with fire spinning. So I dabble in a bit of that, but I'm a mum, so to a quite artsy child. So we do lots of arts and crafts in our house. Reading a book. I'm about to go off to Europe for 2 months to travel, which I'm really excited about, and I need a chunk of time off, I think. I've worked quite hard over the last few years.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're going to absolutely love that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So we're going all around Europe, and I'm seeing my father, who I haven't seen for about 12 years.
Amazing.
So at the moment, I'm just become quite addicted to just looking at parts of Europe that are weird that I can go to. That's my weekend at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got my sister arriving at 5 o'clock tonight with my 10-year-old niece, who they've not stayed with us. They've not stayed in my house for 15 years. And so, it's a big deal. So she's coming to Melbourne tonight. So
family is so important. Yeah,
it is creating time. So yes, I'm on holiday for the next 10 days, which I'm excited about.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Okay, before we go, I've got a this or that, and then the final question. So this is fire questions, this or that. Got 10 of them. Are you ready?
I think so. Hit me.
Mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Movies or books?
Oh, sorry?
Movies or books?
Books.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Morning bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Camping or hotels?
Camping.
Phone calls or text messages?
Oh. Text messages. That depends on who it is.
Pizza or curry?
Oh, man. Pizza.
And last one, Marmite or honey?
Honey.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. I throw that into all of our guests. They do get a bit of a heads up on some of the questions, but this one, yeah, they're like, you didn't tell me about that.
That's good. That's good. Answer or
Okay.
carry really got me. That was a hard one.
Okay. Final question, Jess. What advice would you give to your younger self as a fundraiser that you wish you knew then that you know now?
It's okay to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my younger self was so obsessed with getting it right that I think sometimes you actually get your best lessons from getting it wrong.
The fear of failure.
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, you learn a lot. So I think that's the biggest advice. And slow down. Take time for yourself. Yeah. Your job isn't everything, and you do your best work when you're actually mentally happy within yourself. So
I need to learn that from you, Jess. It's still trying to learn that one.
I'm still trying to learn that one too. That's why I keep
the more we say it out loud, the more it will work.
Exactly. The more we share it.
It's been absolutely a delight having you, and I am certain that we will catch up in person and with the Fundraising Nest again. You've been a huge supporter of our Fundraising Nest community, and we love having you. And have a wonderful time in Europe. I'm sure you'll have a great time, and good luck in the new job, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And until next time, it's been lovely having you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Ka kite, everyone. We will see you at the next Conversation with Friends.
Oh, gosh. No worries.